In today's video, I want to talk specifically to the fisherman that fishes small bodies of water, especially the bank angler, the people who fish ponds or just smaller bodies of water. I really just want to simplify bank fishing for you. There's really three main things that I try to do when I go out there and I'm bank angling or I'm fishing small bodies of water that I really feel like help me to catch more bass than the average guy. And that may not always be true, but I do feel like these three tips will help you a lot. Now, real quick, before we get into those tips, I do want to let you guys know that right now at Fin Fishing, my apparel company, if you buy one of my USA made sun shirts, you can get a free pair of sun gloves. This is a sale that I'm running through the month of February, or at least until my sun gloves last. They are getting a little low on stock. All you got to do is add the USA made sun shirt of choice to cart, add the gloves to cart. It will automatically discount at checkout and you will save $22. So if you want to help support this channel, click that link down below for Fin Fishing. All right, let's talk about fishing small bodies of water. Now, I do primarily fish out of a boat these days, but growing up from 11 years old all the way, I mean, really 11 through 20, kind of while I was in college. Well, I guess I was in college until I was 21. But anyways, or 22, I don't know. Those years, I spent a tremendous amount of time fishing from the bank. Even though I had a boat, I still fished from the bank. And I do a little bit of bank fishing these days, but it's just not as much as I used to do. And I absolutely love it. Let's just talk about that. Bank fishing is one, it's easy to do. It's not easy to catch fish, but it's just easy to grab a rod and go fishing. Like, I love the simplicity of it. And anyways, let's just get into the tips, because if you're listening to this still, you love to fish for bank. You love to fish from the bank as well. All right, the first one that I wrote down here is look for irregularities. When you get to, say for example, a pond, depending on how the pond is shaped, I am always going to try to fish the irregularities in a pond first. Those to me are the high percentage areas of a pond. And what I mean by irregularities is anything that's irregular. For example, one of the biggest things is a lot of ponds that I fished growing up, you would have sections of the pond that are just long and straight. They are very straight. There's nothing to them. It's just a long, straight section. And yes, even in a pond, you can have bass that are on that long, straight section, but it may take you a long time to fish through that little area. So instead, what I'm going to look for in a pond, especially when it comes to the bank and the way that the bank is shaped, is those irregularities, like a small, subtle point, or a big one is a corner. Almost every pond out there has some sort of like corner in it. And I can almost guarantee you that those corners will hold 3 or 4 times as many bass in a really small area as that long, straight section. So instead of trying to fish those long, straight sections, look at the pond and be like, bam, there's a corner, there's a corner, there's a point. I'm gonna start right there. I can probably fish each of those areas in 15 minutes, and probably within 45 minutes or so, you're probably catching fish. Like, I truly, truly believe that. And so not only are irregularities the shape of the bank, but also if there is something randomly irregular as far as cover goes. So for example, when I was just talking about those straight sections, the pond that I grew up on, there was a long straight section of the pond. I didn't fish most of it, except on those one part of that straight section was an old willow tree that kind of half grew out into the water, right? It was something irregular. It was something that was different. So instead, I would walk that bank. I wouldn't even cast. I would get right to that willow tree and make 3 or 4 pitches into that tree. And I felt like I almost always caught a fish. I probably caught the same bass so many different times. And the same thing happens with ponds that have like cattails or reeds in them, or even lily pads. Maybe there is a long straight section, but it has a little patch of pads, or it has a little patch of reeds. That is something that is irregular. It's something for you to focus on. So whenever I get to a body of water, a small pond or whatever, I am looking for those small irregular things about it, and those are the first things that I'm going to hit. And this could really be all over the place when it comes to a pontoon. It could also be like fountains that are in a lake. A fountain is a great place. I know of my buddy owns a pond. Well, his parents own a pond that we used to fish, and they had a waterfall like that went into it. That little waterfall where that water hit, I mean, bam, another great little section. It was irregular. So really pay attention to the irregularities. Okay, let's get into the third thing. The second thing. And this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but this really applies to you if you don't have a private pond to fish. If you are trying to fish in a lot of public bodies of water where there's a lot of other fishermen and there's a lot of other pressure, probably the best thing that you can do, and it's going to require a little bit of work, is try to fish where you think other people aren't going to fish. This is really, really important because sometimes we get to these lakes or these small ponds and we're like, there's a really easy area to access the water. And it's like, oh man, that's a perfect spot. Well, everybody is thinking that exact same thing. Everybody, when they come up to the pond, they're like, oh, there's a perfect little area for me to fish from. So that particular small area gets a lot of pressure. It's just like a bigger lake. When you see these community holes, they get a lot of pressure. Those fish have seen a lot of lures. And even if there are fish in that area, they've seen so many lures that they are very hard to get to bite. And fish in ponds, just like fish in lakes, have little home zones. They have little areas that they like to stay in. And so when I get to a pond, not only am I looking for irregularities, but I'm also looking for areas that are hard to get to. And like I said, it's going to require a little bit of work. I will tell you just about a year or two ago, I was fishing a pretty pressured body of water real close to me. And there was kind of this steeper terrain where I had to literally fumble. I had to carry my rod and scoot down on my butt. And I'm like, no one else is doing this. But it put me right in position in this little corner. And within 4 or 5 casts, I caught one of the biggest bass that I've caught in a long, long time. It was every bit of 5 pounds. I didn't have a scale, probably pushing 6. It was a really, really big fish. And it was all because I got to an area that was less pressured. Not as many people were going to fish in that area. So when you see these ponds, look for irregularities, look for places that people aren't going to fish. All right, let's get into the third one. And this is, don't complicate your lure selection, okay? The best fishing that you can do is usually a lot more simple. And I also, I try to pack very little when I am bank fishing. Usually I have a backpack with 2 or 3 different planos inside of it with a handful of different lures, and I'm going to usually have maybe 1 or 2 rods. I definitely don't want to have 3 rods or even more than that. A lot of times it's just 1 rod. If I can have kind of a rod that can do a lot, a very versatile rod, that is the one that I'm going to pick with me when I go pond fishing, unless I'm going to be fishing really drastically different techniques. Like when I went pond fishing about a year ago, I knew I was going to fish a topwater plopper. I also knew I was going to fish a drop shot. Those kind of require pretty big differences in rods. So I brought 2 with me, but it's easy to kind of throw one down and cast around an area while you are fishing and then pick it up when you move. But it's really, really important to just not complicate things. You do not need every single thing with you. I mean, your Texas rigs are always going to be good. A drop shot. I don't know if you guys have fished a drop shot in a pond. It's one of the best baits to do so. Drop shot is not about fishing vertically all the time. It's about being able to just cast that bait out and it gets a ton of bites. And then some sort of, topwater bait. I love topwaters, especially a frog. Even when you don't have the cheese mats, a frog can be still a great bait to use in a pond. So do not complicate things. So those are the 3 big tips. I hope that this helps you guys. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably like my most recent one, and I will see you guys tomorrow.